I started, like most of us, with inverted rubber on both sides. Since I couldn't master the right techniques, I felt the need for more power from the blade, so I chose a fast offensive blade early on. After a while, I added long pimples to my backhand. Later, I switched to anti-spin rubber that is usually even slower than long pimples, aiming for more control while defending with the fast blade. Over time, I realized I wasn't winning many points by attacking. Most points came from defending well and waiting for my opponents to make mistakes. So I decided to try a much slower blade to help me defend better. For a while, I was undecided and used two very different blades in my tournament matches, while keeping the same anti-spin or long pimples rubber on both. One was a fast offensive blade, and the other was a slower defensive one. Through these matches, I discovered just how critical the right blade choice is and which kind of blade works better with these types of rubbers. Let's start with the faster blade. When I paired it with anti-spin or long pimples, I expected to catch opponents off guard with the sudden change in pace and the unexpected power of counterattacks. On the forehand side, I aimed to keep an offensive attacking style. However, the speed of the blade proved to be a double-edged sword for both rubbers. With the fast blade, my gameplay had to be much more aggressive, aiming to dominate rallies with fast forehand attacks. In theory, the fast blade excels at overpowering opponents, allowing me to take control of points early on. However, due to my footwork limitations and inability to practice with high intensity, I couldn't maintain the precision needed to fully capitalize on the blade's speed. Whether paired with anti-spin or long pimples, the fast blade made controlling spin a challenge. Long pimples, like anti-spin, are more effective when paired with a slower blade that allows you to absorb and manipulate your opponent's spin. With the offensive blade, both rubbers became difficult to manage, as they required fast reactions and technical precision. Blocking with this setup wasn't effective either. Since the fast blade is designed for attacking, my defensive blocks with both anti-spin and long pimples lacked stability and often flew long. Instead of controlling the pace of the rally, I felt like I was constantly giving my opponent the ball to attack. This increased pressure on my footwork and timing, which were already weak points for me. As an amateur player, controlling the ball became a challenge. The high-speed returns often caused me to lose precision on my backhand side, whether using anti-spin or long pimples, resulting in long shots or missed blocks. Due to age-related limitations, hard training wasn't an option, so I couldn't significantly improve my forehand attack either. Whether due to poor footwork or lack of technique, the fast blade nullified the slow rebound effect of both rubbers. This setup requires a lot of skill to play properly, and it became obvious that I didn't have it. In conclusion, the fast offensive blade demanded more precision, better footwork, and an aggressive mindset, all things I couldn't fully exploit as an older amateur player. A fast blade seems better suited for high-level players who need to attack and win points outright. At that level, waiting for your opponent to make mistakes isn't a reliable strategy since they rarely make unforced errors. For them, a fast blade helps dominate rallies, but for me, it led to inconsistent performance and more unforced errors. Switching to the slower blade completely changed my approach. This blade is designed for control and defensive play. When paired with anti-spin or long pimples, it allowed me to handle opponents' spin-heavy shots more easily and stay in the rally longer. The slower speed gave me the opportunity to place my returns exactly where I wanted, frustrating my opponent and causing them to make mistakes. As an amateur player, especially an older one, I've noticed that most points are won by letting my opponent make errors rather than hitting winners. The slower blade makes this strategy much easier. It's slower, but that brings more control, allowing me to keep the ball in play longer and force my opponent to take risks or misjudge their shots. Amateurs often overhit, misjudge spin, or rush into errors, especially when I can keep returning the ball consistently. With the offensive blade, the speed often canceled out the control that anti-spin or long pimples provided, and I found myself struggling to manage returns consistently. But with the defensive blade, both rubbers truly shine. The slower pace of the blade gives me more time to take full advantage of their spin-killing properties. It allows me to return heavy spin shots with ease, keeping my opponent guessing and making it difficult for them to play aggressively. This combination excels at frustrating opponents, leading them to misjudge their shots or make unforced errors. Using a slow blade with anti-spin or long pimples opens up a different strategic approach. Instead of focusing on attacking and trying to force the point, I focus on playing defensively and waiting for my opponent to make mistakes. After testing this setup in tournament matches, here are a few tactical considerations that help me make the most of this combination. With a slower blade, the key is to maintain consistency in my shot. Over time, my opponent becomes frustrated, often leading to errors. Since I'm not relying on power and speed, placement becomes my greatest weapon. I use the slow blade to place the ball in awkward positions, deep in the corners, short and low over the net, or wide to the sides. This forces my opponent to move and react, increasing their chances of making mistakes. Antispin and long pimples excel at disrupting my opponent's rhythm. The slow blade enhances this capability, giving me more time to control the ball and making it harder for my opponent to anticipate the spin or speed of my returns. I alternate between slow, dead balls and deeper, slightly faster shots to keep them guessing. The inconsistency forces them into errors as they struggle to adjust. Blocking becomes key with a slow blade. Instead of trying to attack every ball, I focus on blocking my opponent's powerful shots back onto the table. This forces them to keep working harder, increasing their chances of mistakes, especially against the spin-neutralizing effects of both rubbers. The slower pace of the blade also allows me more time to read my opponent's shots and position myself. I use this extra time to set up my returns and force them into awkward positions. In amateur play, opponents often overcommit, especially against tricky returns. By keeping the ball in play and mixing up my returns, I can lure them into trying to finish the point prematurely. When they do, they often misjudge the ball or hit too hard, resulting in unforced errors. In the end, after testing both types of blades in my tournament matches, for all the reasons explained earlier, I decided to stick with the defensive one. As an older amateur player, the slower blade offers the control I need to stay in the game longer and force my opponents into mistakes. That's why I ultimately chose the slower blade. It gives me the ability to stay in control of the rally and win matches by capitalizing on my opponent's errors, which seems to be the key to success at the amateur level.